After 17 years together, my wife confessed that she cheated on me with my best friend shortly before we got married. 17 years. That's how long I thought I had a solid marriage. Then, a few weeks ago, my wife, Lisa, decided to drop a truth bomb on me that obliterated everything I believed about us. It wasn't a slow reveal either. One night, out of nowhere, she sat me down and just said it. Right before we got married, I invited Jake over. I wanted to sleep with him. Jake, my best friend. The guy who stood next to me as I said my vows. I couldn't even process the words at first. It felt like my brain short-circuited, refusing to let the meaning sink in. She swore up and down that nothing happened, that he didn't go through with it. But how am I supposed to believe that? She wanted it to happen. She planned it. And worst of all, she kept this buried for almost 2 decades, like it was nothing. How many times did we celebrate our anniversary with this lie sitting between us? I asked her why she was telling me now. Was she trying to ease her conscience? Testing if I'd leave? She said she just wanted to be honest. Honest? After 17 years? Honesty doesn't come with an expiration date. The way she said it so casually, like it was some old, insignificant mistake, made me feel sick. If it was so unimportant, why did she keep it a secret for so long? And Jake, my best man, my closest friend, he acted normal all these years. We had barbecues together, took trips, shared milestones. Did he ever feel guilty? Or was he just relieved I never found out? I wanted to call him right then and there, demand answers, but what if he admitted to something even worse? What if her version of the story was just the tip of the iceberg? I barely remember the rest of that night. I think I just walked out, drove around aimlessly, trying to grasp what I just heard. The woman I built my life with, the mother of my kids, once looked at my best friend and thought, I'd rather be with him. Even if it didn't happen, the intent was there. And the intent is enough to break me. And yet, a small, infuriating part of me wonders, why now? Why tell me after all these years? Was this really about honesty? Or was there something more she wasn't saying? I kept waiting for Lisa to say something, anything that would make this make sense. But every word out of her mouth only made it worse. She told me she was struggling back then, feeling isolated with our newborn while I was working long hours. We had been fighting, and she felt disconnected. And somehow, in her mind, that justified reaching out to Jake of all people. I asked her point blank, why him? Why my best friend? She just shrugged and said she had always found him attractive, as if that was some kind of excuse. Then she hit me with the part that made my stomach turn. She thought I wouldn't have cared if I had found out back then. If that were true, why did she keep it hidden for 17 years? People don't hide things unless they know they're wrong. And her story kept shifting. At first, she made it sound like she had just thought about it but never acted on it. Then, suddenly, she admitted she had invited him over with the intention of sleeping with him. That's not just a passing temptation. That's premeditated betrayal. If she had been willing to lie about that for so long, what else had she rewritten over the years? She kept saying it was a mistake, that she was young and lost. But we weren't teenagers. We were engaged. We had a child. And instead of talking to me, instead of trying to fix what was wrong, she reached out to someone who was supposed to have my back. How could I believe that this was the only time she ever crossed a line? How many other mistakes had just never come to light? The more I thought about it, the less it added up. She made it sound like it was just a moment of weakness, yet she had planned it out. She swore it didn't mean anything, yet she hid it for nearly 2 decades. I started replaying every argument we'd ever had, every time she told me she loved me, wondering if it had all been built on a lie. If she had looked me in the eyes back then and lied so easily, what else had she been capable of? And then, an even worse thought hit me. What if this wasn't even the full truth? What if there was more she wasn't telling me? And what if she had never actually stopped lying? It all started with a single message on MySpace. Something as harmless as a, "Hey, how have you been?" Except it wasn't harmless at all. Lisa reached out to Jake first, not the other way around. She admitted that after one of our fights, she felt lonely, like she needed someone to talk to. But out of all the people in the world, she chose him, the one person she knew would shatter me if I ever found out. First, it was just casual talk. She told him about the baby, about how exhausted she was. He asked how we were doing, and she lied. She painted our relationship as something broken, something already doomed. I can't stop thinking about that. How she made it sound like I wasn't enough. How she made us sound like something disposable. Was she just looking for sympathy? Or was she laying the groundwork for something more? The messages didn't stop. Days turned into weeks, and their conversations became a regular thing. She told me she didn't even realize when it crossed a line. But how do you not realize? She was hiding it from me, deleting messages, talking to him late at night when she thought I was asleep. That doesn't just happen. That's a choice, a deliberate one. And that choice eventually led to the night I can't get out of my head. One night, she asked him to come over. She says she doesn't even remember exactly how she worded it, just that she made it clear she wanted him there. And he came. I keep picturing that moment. Him reading that message, knowing exactly what she meant, and still getting in his car. Did he hesitate? Did he even feel guilty? Or had he been waiting for this moment just as much as she had? The worst part? It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't some drunken mistake or heat-of-the-moment lapse in judgment. She planned it. She thought about it. She wanted it. And she made it happen. Even if she swears it never went all the way, the intent was there. And now all I can think about is, if Jake had said yes, would she have ever told me? Or would I still be living in ignorance, believing in a marriage that was never real? That's the question that haunts me the most. Did she confess because she felt guilty? Or because she knew, deep down, that the truth was always going to come out eventually? I keep replaying that night in my head, over and over, like some twisted scene from a movie I never wanted to be part of. Lisa told me she invited Jake over, fully expecting something to happen. Not hoping, expecting. She made the first move. She led him to the bedroom, laid down on the bed, and told him he could sit next to her. She was giving him every possible signal. She wanted this, and for the life of me, I can't understand why. She says he hesitated, that he sat in a chair instead, leaving space between them. Then, after what must have been the longest few minutes of her life, he finally said, "I think I'm gonna leave," just like that. No argument, no confusion. He made his choice and he walked out. And yet, the part that keeps me awake at night, she tried to stop him. She actually tried to get him to stay. I asked her, "What did you say to him?" She looked away when she answered, "I just told him he didn't have to go." That might be the worst part of all. If he had been willing, if he had just leaned in instead of pulling away, would she have gone through with it? She swears she wouldn't have, but how can I believe that? She had already made it this far. Would she have really stopped herself? Or did she only stay faithful because he rejected her? And then there's him, Jake, the guy I trusted like a brother. He was in my home, standing at the edge of a line he should have never been near. And yet, he was the one who backed away. Not Lisa, him. The same guy I had spent years considering my closest friend. Did he leave because he realized how messed up it was? Or was it just guilt? Did he picture my face at the last second and decide it wasn't worth it? I hate that I don't know what really happened in that room, that I only have her version of events. For all I know, Jake walked out because he didn't want to mess up our friendship. Not because she suddenly came to her senses. Maybe he was the only thing standing between Lisa and a mistake that would have shattered everything even sooner. And that thought, that's what's truly unbearable. Because if that's true, then my entire marriage wasn't saved by loyalty, or love, or commitment. It was saved by the moral compass of another man. And I don't know if I can live with that. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But how do you trust someone whose story keeps shifting? At first, Lisa told me she just wanted to hang out with Jake that night. That was the phrase she used, hang out, as if she had invited my best friend over like it was any other casual visit. Then, when I pressed her, the truth cracked through. She admitted she had wanted to sleep with him, but nothing happened. And yet, something still didn't sit right. Because if nothing happened, why did her version of events keep evolving? One day, it was that she had thought about it but wouldn't have gone through with it. Another day, it was that she had been sure he would say yes. Then, suddenly, she claimed she wasn't even sure why she invited him over in the first place. Every time I asked, something changed. The only thing that stayed the same was that she had never told me the full truth from the start. And that's what eats away at me the most. The fact that she hid it for 17 years. It wasn't some buried mistake from her teenage years. It was something she actively chose to conceal while we built a life together. She told me she never said anything because she was ashamed, because she regretted it the second Jake walked out the door. But if that were true, why did she keep lying, even now? What else had she rewritten over the years? I started thinking about every time she had reassured me in the past. Every time she told me she had never even thought about another man. Every time she told me how lucky she was to have me. How many of those words were real? How many were carefully crafted to keep me in the dark? The weight of those thoughts was suffocating. If she had been willing to rewrite the past once, how could I be sure this was the only thing she had ever kept from me? And then another thought hit me. What if she was only confessing now because something else was coming? What if she was trying to soften the blow for something worse? I didn't want to be paranoid, but how could I not be? The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, had spent years lying straight to my face. If she had done it once, who's to say she wasn't doing it again? Who's to say she ever really stopped? That's the problem with lies. Once you realize someone is capable of keeping a secret that big, you start to wonder how many others are still buried, just waiting to surface. And worst of all, do I even want to know? I keep telling myself that this happened before we were married, that technically it wasn't cheating, that it was just a moment of weakness from a younger version of Lisa, someone who isn't the same person she is now. But if that's true, why does it feel like my entire marriage has been built on a lie? I thought I knew the woman I married. Now, I'm not sure I ever did, and that realization is tearing me apart. She keeps saying she loves me, that this was the only thing she's ever kept from me, that she regrets it every single day. But how can I believe that? If she was willing to lie about this for 17 years, how can I trust that she hasn't lied about other things? Every late night at work, every unexpected phone call, every just a friend in her life. Suddenly, it all feels suspect. I don't want to live like this, doubting every memory, questioning every word. And yet, the thought of leaving terrifies me. We've built a life together. We have kids, a home, a history that stretches nearly 2 decades. Walking away from all of that because of something that almost happened years ago, should that really be the breaking point? But then I think about the fact that it wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice she made when she reached out to Jake. A choice she made when she invited him over. A choice she made when she kept it from me for 17 years. People tell me to move on, that I'd be crazy to throw everything away over something that technically never happened. But what they don't understand is that it did happen. Maybe not physically, but emotionally. She had already decided to betray me. The only reason she didn't is because he stopped it, not her. If things had played out differently that night, would I have ever known? Or would I have spent my whole life believing in something that wasn't real? That's the question I can't shake. If Jake had said yes, would she have ever told me? Or would she have buried it so deep that I would have lived my entire life in the dark? I don't know what's worse, the idea that she did this or the idea that I might have never found out. And if I stay, am I just choosing to live in denial? Am I choosing to pretend that this doesn't change everything? Because it does. It really, really does. I don't know what comes next. I don't know if I can ever trust her again. I don't know if this is something we can come back from, or if this is the moment where everything finally falls apart. All I know is that, for the first time in 17 years, I feel like I don't recognize the woman lying next to me, and I don't know if I ever will again.